Shifting gears right now to the Osun State governorship election that's scheduled for Saturday, August the 15th this year. Security deployment has been at the top of the agenda. The Nigerian police is sending 15,000 personnel. Now that deployment includes regular police, police mobile force, and other specialized units. 16 units of the mobile police force have specifically been deployed to Osun. A Deputy Inspector General of Police, DIG, and Assistant Inspector General of Police are expected to coordinate the election operations. Commissioners of police and other senior officers are part of the operational structure. The army is also going to be there. Army troops have been deployed in support of the election security architecture. Now, the army has specifically directed the troops to remain politically neutral and not interfere with voting at polling units, except where their intervention becomes necessary to deal with any security threats. That directive is also covering the avoidance of voter intimidation and maintaining professionalism. The NSCDC, that's the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, is also part of the election security deployment. There are reports that indicate a substantial number for the NSCDC deployment for the Osun poll, and that's alongside a dedicated election security structure. Now, the NSCDC is also establishing mechanisms to monitor vote buying and other electoral irregularities. Now, the police command structure is very heavy in that place. The Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, the overall police leadership. The DIG, Election Security Coordination. The AIG, Election Operations. Commissioner of Police, Samuel Etaifo, specifically assigned to oversee the Osun governorship election. 16 PMF units. Reinforcement for security operations, additional specialized police units and personnel deployed across the state. Now, this is a lot of people for a competition, for a contest. It's a lot. It's a lot. And informed, because over the past few days, we've been hearing so many disappointing stories from Osun State. Killings, attacks when it comes to opposition, suppression, all of these things for a governorship election. We'll get into it. We have a civil rights researcher for Amnesty International Nigeria, Mr. Usman. Abba is our guest this morning. Thank you so much, Usman.
All right. Thank you so much for having me today. Fine. I'm glad to be here.
Are you worried about Osun?
Of course.
Everyone is kind of worried. I mean, we even saw yesterday from the APC. Well, the issue has been the APC and the Accord Party, hasn't it? So now we saw from the APO, someone came shot and the little boy was shot. Toby was shot in his mother's shop. And then other stories. This level of violence for this election, do you have fears that we might have a process that may not be free or fair in any way?
Okay, so thank you so much. I think what is important for us at Amnesty International is we want to see that free and fair election is held in Osun State. But what we have been seeing so far, we are more concerned that the violence that have been recorded in the past, since the beginning of the year, is really disturbing. For example, the cases that in Elisha where the rally have been affected by guns and all other forms of violence. So at Amnesty International, we want to see situations where the election is conducted fairly, without any bias, without any disruptions by other parties who are involved in the processes or even the state. So what is now more important for us is that we are more concerned of the violence, of the interference, and also the killings that are happening in the past days and even months.
I want to be able to situate so people can understand, because when violence keeps happening every day, sometimes people forget to put it together so we can see the magnitude of what we're looking at. Political violence and killings becoming the biggest concern in the final week before the poll. Number of people killed in politically linked violence, at least 18. While other accounts from the police are saying about 30 politically motivated killings. Is this going to cause, in your view, because covering elections, when there are a lot of killings and all sorts of violence, there's a lot of voter suppression, people don't come out because of fears of how violent it is going to be, and because of that, rigging just goes unabated?
Okay, so of course we understand that there are a lot of killings that happen in the past month and days. And what is really disturbing is the number is increasing every day. And for us at Amnesty International, we have already launched monitoring teams and observers to check out some of these evidences and issues that have been raised, especially about the numbers of the killings. For example, we know that over 10 local government in the Osun state, which is about 10% of the entire local government areas in the state. So this killing has already instilled fear in people who are potentially going to go and vote. And another issue is we don't want situations where, because of this escalating violence by thugs who are employed maybe by the parties involved, to affect the confidence of people and the peace that we want people to have during the election. And another issue is we don't want to see situations where interferences by both the state and the federal or any actors to the election is instigating or inciting intimidations or force or even coercion. So in a nutshell, the whole situation in Osun State is really something that everyone, all the stakeholders, all the parties must come together to come in terms of peace, in terms of tolerance, and even protections of political rights, because people have this right and it must be protected. That's why we always advocate that the state should fulfill, promote, and also respect the human rights that is revolving around the election that is upcoming.
Did all the stakeholders, the political parties involved, did they sign a peace accord?
Yeah, it's interestingly, we found out that at least, I think, maybe 12 of them out of the 14 that are enlisted in the INEC list to do the ballot. So this is a really good step, but they really need to do more. For example,
the APC and the Accord Party, they signed a peace accord.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say here is it is important that they do not only sign this peace, that they also translate it to the people. Because what is important now is the voters that are going out to go and vote during the election, even before the election. So now what we are trying to make them understand is, if really you are committed to this peace deal and peace code, you need to translate it to the followers.
To the relevance of peace accords, and I think I've had this conversation before with Amnesty International. When we get parties involved in an electoral process to sign a peace accord, what is the punishment? I may be somebody that likes to punish people, but what happens when you break a peace accord? Is anyone held responsible? Is there some kind of punitive measure? Are you suspended? Are what happens if you don't keep to an agreement?
Okay, so in this kind of situations, this is a personal commitment the party has already committed to. And also we have check agencies like the Electoral Act, which is regulating the processes, the conduct, and even the INEC Commission is also giving guidance on this kind of situation. So when it happens that a party has violated this right, for example, if they instigated or they investigated and found out that they have instigated, incited violence against any individuals or even party, it means that the state and the agencies involved, the police, the SSS, are held responsible to bring these perpetrators of this violence to account. So what is important is not only about signing this, is also checking them if really they have committed to this. And this is solely the responsibility of the state, which I already mentioned, that they have to fulfill, protect, and even promote these protections of human rights in this regard. Yeah.
I mean, the Osun State election has been very contentious. We're just coming out from the fact that at some point the state account had to be frozen because of by the EFCC, or because they saw illicit movement of monies to some strange accounts. And then we also saw the president intervene and say, no, you have to rescind that order. Brought up a lot of questions. We're still trying to understand if there was some kind of court order that was backing the action of the EFCC. Is it within their purview to do what they did, and things like that. The overall, so while we're still trying to understand that, we're now dealing with the security situation, and this is an election that's holding this Saturday. I know that for every election I see Amnesty International deploy people. You have your staff on ground and whatnot. What do you think is going to happen this Saturday? What are you seeing?
Okay, so like we already mentioned earlier, that the Amnesty International is more concerned about the upcoming election on 15th August in Osun State. And our concern is we are seeing interferences by the state, both federal and the state and local, and even actors of the parties. So now the question whether the state and the federal government or other actors are ready, and they don't have a choice because it's an obligation for the state to protect this electoral processes. And also it's important we know that simply because a violence is happening or there is interference happening, it doesn't mean that nobody should be held accountable. Everyone involved in these processes must be held accountable, and this is what we are promoting at Amnesty International. And also already we have deployed our monitoring and observer teams already in Osun State. They have already monitoring and analyzing some of the data we are already receiving there on the field. And also on the day of the elections, we are going to have our observers deployed in that place so that we can observe what are some of the misconduct, whether it is excessive force by the state or forces, or whether it is an unnecessary arbitrary arrest, because we already see that there is ongoing arrest, arbitrary arrest, and this will really affect the people's right to go out to vote. Imagine if you hold somebody for more than a week now, it means that he's definitely going to miss the election. So what we are calling on this kind of issue is let them fasten and quicken the charges, or if there is no any charges, the person should be released.
I mean, it's a very interesting one. Look at the amount of people being deployed for this election. It looks like we're going to war. It feels like a deployment to fight insurgency. And then, of course, the issue of vote buying, and then the security, and then the arbitrary arrests, and the back and forth mudslinging. Ayo, go ahead with your questions for our guest.
Well, thank you, Kayla. Well, Mr. Abba, just a couple of things I'd like to raise very, very quickly. Every time an election of this nature is coming up, whether it's main general elections or off-cycle elections such as this, particularly organized by INEC, issues such as insecurity or, violence and all of that usually come up. We have also heard historically that the voter turnout for Osun elections is usually 35% of the registered voters or less. In what way do you see this current spate of campaigns or noises and all of that? In what ways do you see them affecting the turnout of voters so that we all can be guided?
Okay, so for this situation in Osun State, we already see that the campaigns have already started and activities have already kicked off. But what we are recording and the cases we are seeing is violence sweeping across all these places. For example, we have already identified that at least more than, 10 areas that are prone to violence have already recorded violence. So the implication of this is it will affect the peace and the confidence of people who are supposed to go and enjoy their right to vote or participate in the election processes in the beginning and at the end. So now our concern at this moment is if this violence continues to ravage those campaigns and rallies, people will have this thought that it is not time for me to go out. Maybe they are going to risk their life. And for these reasons, we are holding the state accountable, because this is something that they should have protected it, they should have envisioned it, and they should have provided measures in order to protect people against any sort of violence. And also, we already see that there is intimidation, there are forces used, and this is something that has really affected the confidence of people who are intending to go and cast their votes during the election on this upcoming Saturday.
Well, in all of these, we're still talking about voter awareness, voter education, voter conviction, and all of that. I see that generally INEC has been out of the fire, so to speak. No one is challenging INEC about anything so far. Can you say anything about INEC preparedness in terms of whatever it is that they need to do at this time? Today is Monday, the election is just a few days away. Is there anything that you think INEC should do now to prevent this? And God forbid any violence on election day, what are the things that you would recommend that INEC should do? What are the consequences?
Okay, so for these situations, we see INEC as a body that is supposed to be conducting this election on the day of election. And also it is important to know that they must work together with other agencies and institutions so that they can have a free, credible, and transparent conduction of this election. So what is important in this situation is for them to be committed to fairness, transparency, and also to be non-participant to any party that is involved in this election. So my call on this particular issue is the fact that it should remain the neutral ground for everybody so that no one will say that there is a misconduct by a particular electoral agency or the security agency. So it's important that they should commit to this and also work together with other agencies to really give chance to people to vote who they want, when they want, and whatever they want to choose to do. So this is really important for INEC to really consider this.
It's a very dicey one, and everyone who's involved in this process has a lot to do. This is a litmus test, really. All these off-cycle elections are a sort of litmus test for what we're going to see come 2027, and that worries me, worries a lot of Nigerians. When the build-up to the election is so violent and so much vitriol and 30 people killed, when you see these things, it makes you wonder about our electoral process and what we've done as a people to our democracy. We've turned it into a do-or-die affair, and then rhetorics out there that make people believe that you have to do anything to get into office. I know that Amnesty International has been worrying about this as well, been talking to political actors, because in this particular matter, it is the political actors that are the problem here. It is not the people. We've educated the people, we've done everything. Now look at us deploying the entire police force, it feels like, to cover a contest between something that's supposed to be a celebration of democracy. It's supposed to be a peaceful, joyful event, but we've turned it into a war. Is there anything that can be done about this picture of how our elections are held in Nigeria, such a violent contest?
Okay, so for example, in the beginning, when we see that there is massive deployment of security agency in such election day, it means that something must be checked. For example, we couldn't bring people to come and cast their vote, and they are being surrounded by the military and the police and the army brandishing rifles all across. So it means that in these circumstances, we must make sure that this military deployed in these areas must be held responsible. What I mean here, responsibility, it means that they must protect, they must fulfill their obligations
and serve.
And serve, of course. Serving it's one of the obligations, of course.
But we are totally out of time. I do have to thank you so much, Usman Abba, for being with us this morning. Usman Abba is a civil rights researcher for Amnesty International Nigeria. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the day.
Oh, I will.